How do you choose a bike saddle for racing? And once you found one and had good success with it, why change? What saddle should you consider today if you're looking for a new road racing saddle? Hi, I'm Steve from InTheKnowCycling.com and the In the Know Cycling YouTube channel, and we'll answer those questions today. I'm welcomed by my fellow tester Miles, who just won his second consecutive Massachusetts State Road Racing Championship. He's headed out to Nationals this weekend, where he's podiumed multiple times before. Miles, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What saddle have you been on, and how has it worked for you in the past, and why change now? Maybe take those one at a time.
Okay, so I've been on, for years I was on the Fizik Vento Argo, usually the R3 model, which retails for $100 to $120. And it's just a solid overall racing saddle. It's got plenty of space to move around. It's elongated, which means you can get forward on the saddle to really put the power down. And it works for me in all different kinds of environments: criterium racing, road racing, even gravel and cyclocross. It came stock on one of my bike purchases about 15 years ago, and I liked it, and I ended up, because it was fairly affordable, I bought several of them to go across the different bikes that I have. But more recently, realized that saddle designs have changed and become slightly wider and shorter, and with more channeling in the middle. And so I was interested in trying out different ones for racing.
So that's really interesting, because a lot of people, it takes years and years to find the right saddle. Once they do, the last thing they want to do is check out another one. And you've had a lot of success. I won't go through all your Palmares, but last year, as I understand, was your best year ever in terms of your results, at least at the age group level.
Yep.
So you were just curious to see what else was out there, or what else?
Yeah.
Were you getting tired of this one? Was it not feeling right anymore? Or get into more of that.
Yeah, I've always considered myself to be a pretty adaptive rider. I can ride any bike in any situation. I just like to ride bikes, and I'm not that particular, but over the years I've become more particular about certain things and the fit that I have, and things like the width of my handlebars and exactly where my hoods are placed. And that's just come, not out of being neurotic about it, but just years and years of experience and trying out new things and telling myself, yeah, that feels a little better than it used to. And just playing around with my fit overall. But to be honest, I've seen a mixture of a lot of people with these new saddle designs, plus the Fiziks was getting a little uncomfortable. Perhaps I wasn't replacing them as fast as I should have, but and a lot of time on the trainer in the winter, and I was just thinking it's maybe time to explore new saddle designs and see how it goes.
Okay, and as you went into that exploration, did you have a few things that you were looking for specifically in a new saddle?
In particular, I wanted it to be slightly wider and have a center channel, and be able to be comfortable when seated really far forward on it, which I could get with the Antares saddle, but I felt like there was probably something better even out there.
So let's look at each of the saddles that we have here. Just to go through them one at a time, the ones that you've tested, including the one that's currently on your Cervelo.
Well, first I tried the adaptive Fizik.
This is the Argo Adaptive.
This is the Argo Adaptive Fizik with the, I guess what they call the 3D printed top. I love the shape of the saddle overall, but the material for me is not great for racing.
And why is that?
It's simply too sticky. You can't move around on it. It really grabs your bib shorts. And so if you wanted to, let's say you were in a race situation, you're seated back, you were at zone 3 power, and suddenly there's an attack that happens and you want to chase after it. If you're let's say you're climbing up a steep hill at the same time and you wanted to be seated, for part of that counterattack. You really have to get up out of the saddle and hopefully land your butt at the right spot that you want it to, because I found it very hard to even tweak half a centimeter forwards or backwards while you're putting full power down without getting up out of the saddle.
You know, just to add to that, we have reviewed 3D saddles from multiple brands, and you can find that link in the description box below. And I use a couple 3D saddles, one on my gravel, one on my road bike. I don't move perhaps the way you do on a bike, since I'm not racing. And I find that the grippiness of some saddles is more so and others less so, depending upon the way they've constructed it. So this one didn't work for you, and I think perhaps as a a broader racing consideration.
So the next one I tried was the Aeolus Pro, which has a very simple design. It's got these holes in it to provide some flexibility, I guess. I'm not totally sure what the holes are for. But in terms of comfort and racing, I really love this saddle. It's a little bit more sloped from the back to the front, which allows you to rotate your hips more to get more aero. I really appreciated that. It's fairly wide in the front, but with this really robust center channel, so you can really get down low and aero. You can also move forward on the saddle and really hammer up a steep climb while seated without any discomfort in the front part of the saddle. I found you could get really aero in the saddle, and I'd give it like a 10 out of 10 in terms of comfort, from everything from criteriums all the way through 4-hour races.
Very versatile.
And then the Prologo Dimension. This one is, the real estate on this saddle is the smallest out of all the ones I tested. It's very flat front to back. And for me, this was a pure racing saddle. Didn't really push how long I could stay comfortable on this saddle. I did race a few criteriums with it, and it proved to be very good for criterium racing because it doesn't get in the way. So when you get out and sprint, when you come sit down, the saddle is right there where you want it to be, and it's not in the way. This one is super narrow on the front, so I found it kind of uncomfortable when I'm really forward on the saddle, hammering. It didn't have as much space as the Aeolus, so I really only found comfort when I was in the main purchase area. And like I said, it's fairly flat, which doesn't really rotate your hips forward as much as the Bontrager, so you have to do that on your own. The other thing I liked about this is I like a really aggressive saddle position for the rails, where you put it relative to the seat post. This saddle had the most rail space out of all of them, so I could push the saddle farther forward than pretty much any of these other saddles. I think it's best for criteriums or flat time trials. I wouldn't love it on a big mountain climb, and I wouldn't like it for a century ride.
Let's talk about the one you have here on your bike.
So the Argo, this is the non-adaptive version. It's the 00 level, which means it's their highest, their best level.
Has the carbon rails, I think, as well, right?
Carbon rails, yep. It's also, it has a center channel in the middle here, which is quite wide in the center, but also disappears in the front and the back, which makes it, for me, slightly less comfortable than the Bontrager Aeolus Pro. And the material on this is a little grippy. It's hot today, and it feels even more grippy. And so moving forward and backwards is not as easy as it is on the Bontrager, but it's definitely much easier than it is on the adaptive version of this saddle. But this one is wide enough in the front that I felt like when seated and climbing, I could put a lot of power down. The wide channel in the middle allows you to get really pretty aero. So this saddle is also slightly ramped from the back towards the front, which I do like. It allows you to rotate your hips more forward. If you can compare the old Antares, it's hard to see, but there's a little bit more of an angle ramp at the back of this saddle versus the old Antares, which is a pretty flat with a slight ramp at the very back. So you get a little bit more, that's a little bit more of a modern design to have there.
So Miles, as I mentioned earlier, you're headed out to Wisconsin for nationals.
Yep.
You've got several saddles to choose from. You've told us the pluses and minuses of all these. Which do you plan on using at nationals this year?
Yep, I think I will likely keep this Fizik Argo on the bike. It's very close with the Aeolus Pro. I could go either way. I feel like it does take some trial and error to get the position exactly right. For me, they're very, very similar saddles. Some of the main differences are this is a little lighter than the Aeolus overall, so you save some weight on the bike. It's about 55 grams lighter, if I did the math right. It's comfortable enough for a 3-hour road race. I'd give it like a 9 out of 10 in comfort, whereas the Aeolus is a 10 out of 10 on comfort. So it's a little bit of sacrificing comfort for weight savings, and I feel like the power transfer, the ability to pedal is about equal for the two of them.
So having gone through this process of trying different saddles, what have you learned, about how to choose or how to look at different saddles, how to test them, that you think would be relevant to others, racing and wanting to use their saddle to help them go as fast as they can?
Yeah, I mean, most saddles now come in a variety of widths. So knowing the width that you are, the ballpark that you're in, is really important. So you can do one of those sit bone tests. It's important that you get the width right. Even though there's really only 2 or 3 options to choose from, it's important to get the width right, because you don't want the saddle to be too wide, because it gets in the way. And you don't want it to be too narrow, because you'll be uncomfortable. So for me, I'm a medium-sized guy, and the 140 to 145 millimeter width was perfect. So in many respects, these 5 saddles here are all very similar. And when you sit on them, the things you notice are less the width and more what you get forward and backwards, and the comfort that you get straight down with your weight. Those, for me, are the factors. So once you have determined your width, then it's about considerations around how aero do you want to be. Do you want to be able to move forwards and backwards on your saddle during hard efforts? And how much channeling in the middle do you require for comfort for longer rides?
Well, Miles, thanks so much. This has been very helpful and instructive. If I were a racer, I'd know exactly what to do. And those of you who are racers, who have enjoyed this and learned something from this, feel free to like and subscribe, and check out the links to where you can get these saddles in the description box below. Thanks. We'll see you again in the next video.